This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Took a hiatus towards the end of last week. There was no day for Frank Scalish because Frank and I were at the 25th anniversary of the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Randy Hopper, Craig Lamb, William Shakespeare Jr. all inducted into the Hall of Fame. That marked the 101st, 102nd, 103rd inductees into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. Always a very special weekend. It was awesome. Frank had several items in the auction. One was the 5 lures that kind of just went for the general auction that fans and listeners could bid on. But the second, we're going to get into this. This is going to be so good when we have Frank on Thursday. The second was they actually took the 5 drawings of lures that he had done and then put it in a case with the 5 individual drawings and did a live auction of it. And Frank was there, and it went for like $4,300, I want to say. But we've got some videos on that. It is probably, well, unless Frank comes to the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame again, it's probably the only time you're going to get to see a photo. And Frank put it up on his social media of both Frank Scalish and myself in a suit with a tie on. So Frank broke out the Italian suit with the silk tie, looking very dapper. So we're looking forward to talking on that. Got to see a lot of there were about 20 Hall of Famers there. Skeet was there, Kevin was there, Polinick, who's on the board, he was there. Carl Jacobson jumped in and attended that. A lot of support there for Craig Lamb, who still works for Bass and talks and covers that 200 plus days a year. But just a really cool event. You can watch the replay of it. Big shout out to all the BTL listeners. The BTL experience, where you get to co-host BTL for a day, get a prize pack for some of our fine sponsors here and some BTL merch. That went for $1,000 to raise money for the Hall of Fame. So always cool. Always look forward to kind of that end of September, beginning of October for the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. Also, a lot of fishing still going on. We've got college anglers that are battling it out. I believe either yesterday or today, sometime around there, is the final between the college anglers who are battling out for a spot in the upcoming Bassmaster Classic. I mean, we've seen in the past, obviously, Easton Fothergill has made it through that, and we saw him win it, not through the college bracket, but a lot of those college anglers who have made the Bassmaster Classic through that bracket have gone on to have incredible seasons. The first being incredible careers. Andrew Upshaw was the very first one to ever do it, but obviously with that $500,000 tournament coming up here in a couple weeks on Gunnersville, Jordan Lee, when he was fishing for Auburn, I remember top 5 that Bassmaster Classic as a college angler. So also kind of wrapping things up as we head towards a Toyota Series championship on Grand Lake. Mr. Fox, I believe, won the Toyota Series there on kind of a stingy Lake of the Ozarks. You kind of get that time of the year, that late September, early October, bait fish start kind of floating, and you have to kind of dive into your bag of tricks to get the job done. But congratulations to him on a win. One of the other things that we like to do kind of this time of the year is chat with some of the BTL sponsors. And one of the things I've always talked about with BTL is we like to take advantage of the knowledge and the relationship that we have with those sponsors to kind of take a deep dive in behind the scenes. One of the brands that's been with BTL since for over a decade probably is Gamakatsu. And they've no longer is it just, hey, the Gamakatsu EWG worm hook and the round bed, which when you first, it was just I think they had the G lock there. I remember I was a big G lock guy back in the day, but Gamakatsu's really kind of stepped out recently and done a lot of unique things. Unique as in, like, you look at it and you go, I am not sure what that's for, but it looks kind of interesting. So we've got Ted Thibault from Gamakatsu on, and he's going to walk us through a bunch of the new stuff from Gamakatsu. If you have hook questions, go ahead and get them into the instant feedback, and maybe we can hit Ted with some questions at the end. But we're going to go through some really cool new stuff that Gamakatsu has has come out. We got a little bit of a sneak peek on it when we did our iCast live shows, and we got Ted for a little bit of time there in Orlando. But let's bring Ted in from the West Coast. I've had a lot of West Coast guys on, so I always start out by saying thank you for the 6:30 a.m. Wake up call, Ted. Much appreciated. You look bright-eyed and bushy-tailed though.
Well, it's appreciate that. No, I usually get a pretty early start in the day, so no problem at all, Matt.
Yeah, is that fair in saying that over the last three to 5 years, it seems like Gamakatsu has really kind of pushed the envelope on taking some Japanese concepts, some kind of outside the box concepts instead of just those 2 or 3 kind of standard hooks, and really kind of pushing it out to the North American market?
We really have. It's it's kind of a combination, Matt, of where that comes from. There's a little bit of it that gets developed in Japan. So you've got some. So it used to be that when a hook was developed in Japan, that we would not necessarily bring it to the U.S. Immediately to the market, and we would debate, internally, is this a hook we need? Is this a hook that will work? Et cetera, et cetera. What we've decided to do in the last several years is just, if we launch a new hook in Japan, we just automatically bring it to the U.S. market to see what people think. Because sometimes a hook that's developed over there for one technique winds up working for a new technique that we've got here, and vice versa. We see that all the time when we develop a hook for a certain species. I'll use split shot, drop shot as an example. But I've got a ton of kokanee fishermen that think that's the best hook ever, and so we have to be careful with that sometimes on how we name it. But a lot of it comes from that. And then also our pro anglers, the guys that we work with here closely, it's kind of a combination of both of those things.
You mentioned the pro anglers. So you guys have done also a good job, I think, of Mike McClellan too, with that hybrid worm hook when it came out, and then obviously up until his passing, Aaron Martin, synonymous with it. I think when you were on last time, you were talking about how you still had some hooks that he was designing in 2019 and 2020 that you guys just came out with over the past couple years with little unique twitches in it. But is that a thing where a Gamakatsu pro staff guy, a guy on the BPT, a guy on the Elite Series will literally just call you and say, hey, there's a need for this. I'm taking this hook and I'm doing this to it, or there's where we need to do this with this hook. Like, I'm thinking of some Brent Ehrler stuff over the last couple of years. Is that how kind of that stuff spawns, where there's like kind of an open communication between Gamakatsu and the guys on their pro team?
Absolutely. That's a big part of this information comes from those guys, and just having those relationships with them, and maintaining that open communication, because the biggest challenge we have is that we'll have a hook or an idea for a hook that one of the guys comes up with. We've got to be able to sell tens of thousands of them, not just a couple thousand in one little region at one lake. And that's always the big challenge that we have, is balancing that. Is it a hook that's going to be big enough to sell to lots of markets versus just one very small market? So we've got to try to balance that as a manufacturer as well. Okay.
I use that as an example, so we're going to dive right into it. So the first time I saw this hook, and I'm going to pull up the Gamakatsu website right here. I got a pack of these, and I was like, oh, cool. It's that Brent Ehrler Stinger hook. But then I noticed where the keeper on it is actually way further down the shank than you would think it would be if you're going to, Texas rig a 6-inch finesse worm on it. But this kind of seems to be like one of those things where Brent was, we had a bunch of tournaments. There were tournaments on the Great Lakes where guys were throwing those 3 to 5 inch minnow baits, and they were taking straight shank drop shot hooks, threading the minnow bait onto the hook to get a better hookup ratio. But there was really no hook designed for that. So is this a prime example of, hey, this is a need that takes a hook that we were modifying without it? Gamakatsu said, hey, we can do that, and then build a better mousetrap with it.
Exactly. And in this case, Brent felt that was the best place for this, for the keeper, to your point. He just went during the design process. Again, sometimes it's an opinion of the angler, and not necessarily all anglers agree with what that person's take is on it. So that's part of the challenges when we're developing these products that are signature series, whether it be Mike McClellan or Brent Ehrler, that they want a very specific way to design this hook to put their name on it. And so that's always a balancing act for us during the product development phase.
And then I would imagine it's also a challenge to say, hey, is this something that is so specialized that we can't, mass produce it to market? And 90% of the people go, what the hell is this for? But there's also an education standpoint that then comes in with that when you come out. I remember Shin came out with with that wacky style hook a couple years ago that you had to really educate anglers on how to rig it as well.
Absolutely. There's a lot of that happens. There's just, it's, we shake our heads all the time. We'll have a concept in mind of how we think this is going to be sold, how people are going to rig it, what they're going to do. And we try to do as best we can. And with today's technology, pardon me, it gets a little bit easier with the video and the social media of trying to explain or tell the story behind a hook than it used to be. And so it really helps us to all the way around from an education standpoint to really point out, like you said, the subtleties, Matt, of how to rig, certain hooks and how they're designed to work.
All right. One of the main reasons I wanted to have you on was to talk about these one-touch blades, and I saw them earlier this year for the first time, and it immediately kind of reminded me of the Bassmaster Classic. I think it was the one that Chris Lane won. I want to say 2012. I think Keith Poche was throwing a Cinco with a spinner in the back of it, and it was the first time that I had seen a traditional bait that was fished with some additional flash to it. And that's a standard thing now. There's all sorts of, you can screw the bait into the back of a soft stick style bait and stuff. Like, there's a lot of guys who throw that in Florida and out there in the Carolinas. But I had never really seen an effective blade that was meant to be that was meant to be used either with a hard bait, a variety of hard baits, or applicable to soft baits. And then the one-touch blades came out, which I think is something that I haven't seen a lot about on social media and like in the tournaments, but I know for a fact a lot of the guys that are with Gamakatsu are throwing this thing and have thrown it the second half of 2025. So can we take a deep dive into the one-touch blades?
Certainly. This is one that takes a little bit of explaining, but once you understand the concept, it's pretty cool stuff. So, I've got one here that I'll hold up, and I don't know how well everybody can see it on camera.
It looks just down just a little bit. Looks fantastic.
Okay, so I just rigged this one up on a bait here just so you can kind of see it. And what it essentially is it's got a small wire on it that's in a loop. And what it does is, and Matt, you might go to the instruction page on the one-touch blade on the website. There's a little diagram there that you can kind of see. There you go. So there's a hook that goes on the end of it, and it goes right through the eye of the treble. And there's three different sizes. There's a small, a medium, and a large. And right on the side of the packaging, it indicates what size trebles that it fits. Because obviously the length or distance or the length of that shaft is different for each size treble. Mm-hmm. And so right on the back of the package, we put which size fits which of our hooks.
Yep.
So you just got to size it accordingly. And it clips right over the top through that eye, goes down underneath, and then there's a bead that comes up underneath it that actually slides up underneath the treble, because that's actually movable, and it locks that blade into place. And there's two different versions. There's a willow leaf and a Colorado in both gold and silver. And, the first time I saw this in the water, that's where, to me, it really shows what it can do. I mean, you put this on a glide bait and see what that thing does in the water, and it's amazing the kind of action and flash that it adds to that. And that's one of the things that when you see it in the water and you realize just how easy this is to rig, your imagination starts going. You're like, okay, I can do all kinds of things with this.
I've got some footage here. I need to pull it up, and it's of Mike McClellan. So that the key on that though is it does not it enhances and complements the action of your jerk bait, whether it's a McStick or whether you're putting it on a Chad Shad. Or that's the thing that I thought was interesting, was it did not, from what I have seen and fished with it and been on the water with these guys, it doesn't hinder the action of the bait. Here it is right here.
Yeah, this is I think this is a really good shot here for everybody to be able to actually see it, because it's a challenging thing in this environment for me to be able to show it.
Yeah, you can see right there on that sashimi swimmer where it's actually the bait is still swimming perfect with the blade underneath it. Is this type of thing a hard sell for the general consumer who's used to throwing their baits and stuff like that to say, hey, add something to your favorite bait? Or do you find that people and people who fish are more likely to try it to say, hey, I'll give it a shot?
I think that in this case, you're kind of fine tuning something. So, I mean, I think it intimidates people if you're a relatively new user or new fisherman, to try to start tinkering with things and putting blades on things. And so it's an education process. I think your more astute anglers are going to be more and likely to understand the importance of this and how much more, how to make your bait look different, which can trigger more strikes, as we all know. And it's just that's the same old out there in the water.
There's another component to this that I think has endless uses, and it is the one-touch blade, but it's literally like it's basically like, I would say, a trailer hook style eye on it that Gamakatsu kind of is known for, where you have the rubber over the eye, so you can basically add flash to spinnerbaits, swim jigs, plastics, anything that you want to, and still get that same flash on it.
Exactly. In this case, it does have that the cap. So I've got one rigged here, that everybody can see, and you can see the blade. I just pierced it right through the hook point there and put it down over the top. So it just adds another little dimension. It doesn't interfere with the bait. It just gives you a little bit more flash on that bait. So in this case, I just put it on a spinner bait, but if you wanted to put that on a chatterbait, or you wanted to put it on, virtually anything, a buzz bait, there's lots of different things you could use this for. And again, your imagination is kind of, what you want to use to do this with. And again, two different versions, Colorado and a willow, in both gold and nickel.
Is this something that is this kind of coming over from Japan, or is this a North America deal?
No, this actually was from Japan. I remember the first time we got the samples on it, and you're kind of going, wait a minute, this does what now? And so once you start to see how it rigs and you actually put it on, it's very simple to rig. Again, that hook just goes right through the eye and comes right down and makes it very simple to place it on there. And once you get it on there and you see it in the water, you're like, okay, I get this. This is cool.
Yeah, and then I would imagine that the components on this have to be pretty high as far as where the barrel swivel is and all the O-rings and stuff for that to work on very low retrieve speeds.
Exactly. So that's all precision made in Japan product and works just like it's just works just phenomenal. And again, these are brand new to the market. So we just barely started having these. We've got them up on the website. We don't have a lot of retailers that's brought them in quite yet, just because it's so new. And a lot of times, Matt, going back to your earlier comments, when we launch something, sometimes it takes a little while for it to really get momentum. There's several hooks that we've launched that are 2 or 3 years old. They're now starting to really catch on. And so sometimes I think it's just, it takes a little bit of time initially for things to really get popular for sales to really start shooting up.
I think I could definitely see like late fall when those fish are on the finger shad and you're throwing a mixed stick or one of the smaller kind of a Spro jerk bait or something to get that flash on the back treble, especially with forward facing, with the bait fish seeing a lot of that stuff. You get it in there and it gives that different flash. I think this is going to be, it took a while. I mean, I think it took 3-4 years for a lot of guys to get comfortable screwing a blade into the back of their Cinco or their stick bait. Right. I think I could kind of see the same thing on this, but I do know a lot of the glide bait guys are adding it to, like I said, their KGB Chad shads and a lot of the glides, and they were skeptical. This is off the record stuff. They're very skeptical at first, and they were like, okay, I'll do it to get some shots of it. And then they do it and they're like, oh my gosh, like, hey, look at this thing in the water. So I've got them. I'm very excited to try with that, especially with that KGB Chad. It does not affect the action at all. So
well, it's always fun for us because we'll see all this stuff for a while before we ever introduce it to the pros. We had an outdoor rider event that was the end of April, and several of the pros were there. And so when you start, I can tell almost immediately when I show it to some of these guys whether or not they think it's. I'm not so sure about that one. And there was a lot of head scratching with this one a little bit, but I'll tell you, Cliff Perch, immediately looked at this and said, I love this thing. This is awesome. And then it slowly, a few of the other guys said the same thing. And then again, once they started using it, it was, I think everybody's pretty well sold on it.
All right. One of the other things that everyone looked at and went, "What the heck is this?" I don't see it on the new products.
I know which one this is.
It's the antenna hook.
Yes, sir. I knew.
Okay.
I already have it in my hand.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly
So
what you're going to say.
I've got a pack of these. I've talked with several guys on a pack of these. I think I might have a concept of it. I've looked it up. With all sorts of the new stuff that's coming out with Nico, with all sorts of the weird shapes on the stuff, with everything. All right, walk me through this hook, because at first scene you're like, okay, this thing is like wrong out of the package, but I think it could be one of those things in the future where a lot more guys go to it. So let's roll through. It's called the antenna hook, right?
It is, and this is one, just so you know, this was a hook that was developed in Japan, and I'll try to do my best to hold it still.
Perfect.
And steady.
Looks
for everybody,
fantastic.
so that you can
explain that to the iTunes listeners who don't have a visual on it. I don't know if that's above my pay grade, Ted, to try to explain that hook.
So basically, this is just a fluorocarbon leader that's tied onto. You see a lot of people, like you were talking about earlier, when they're drop shot and tying thread or wrapping the shank of the hook so that it'll hold a bait on it. And in this case, you'll see there's a little small loop that's right here underneath there. And the reason that the way this hook was designed in Japan was for saltwater. And my understanding of how they would fish this is through oyster beds and things like that. They want this fluorocarbon leader that's tied onto the front of it, sticking straight out, kind of like an antenna, to be able to touch and feel the bottom, so that they were just slowly bouncing along the bottom in this manner. This little loop is designed for a weight that we don't physically have here, as much as I hate to say that. So they have a small weight that they'll attach to this little loop that you see here.
Okay. And
this is our B10. This is, if you look at this hook, this is our B10S Stinger style hook.
Yeah, similar to that. Is that the same one that Brent Ehrler hook?
Correct. And it's a straight shank, so you can see it's that exact same hook. So that's the idea of how they fish this in Japan. And so what we're feeling that a lot of people will gravitate towards when they're rigging this is using it in kind of a bottom application, to where you can touch and feel that bottom as you're coming across structure. So again, this is one of those hooks that we brought over just because they had it in Japan and we wanted to see what kind of reaction. So we'll bring a small quantity over, see what the reaction is from people, and then we kind of go from there on it.
All right, I'm going to pull this thing up here and see if I can show people even closer. So here's the hook. So this fluorocarbon loop right here, this is like on this is a giant one, but these full cast like koike balls, koike balls, they're using like this fluorocarbon drop on the back of the hook, and then picture like a oblong drop shot weight, but instead of just having a deal where you can put your line through it, you can actually hook it onto that fluorocarbon. So now you've got the miniature of all miniature drop shots, basically. So you have your bait hooked on the hook here, your weight is coming off of this. So your hook is now up here with your bait like this. And then this is where I find it interesting. So your tie on here, and then the antennas basically feel along the bottom to keep the bait slightly up above it and work its way over the rock, the structure, the cover, or whatever it is. Do I have that right in my head there, Ted?
That's correct. You absolutely do. And I've even had some of the guys say, I'm going to cut the fluorocarbon leader off and use it for a drop shot hook. There's all kinds of things guys will do with this hook, but that is the concept, Matt. You nailed it.
Yeah, I would say amongst the finesse fishermen with what we have going on, this little number right here, the fluorocarbon loop on the mid shank of the hook, is the next big trend in North America finesse fishing. That is basically like a Texas rig. Like all the Japanese anglers, the Japanese guys I've been in the boat with, the Japanese guys I talk to, this is a standard for them. And I would say 98% of American fishermen have not caught on to this yet. Would you say from your deal that that's a pretty fair assessment, that this kind of drop shot clip in weight is the next kind of big finesse thing that's coming over?
Exactly. You're going to start seeing some more of that, Matt, for sure. There's you held up that koike bait, which, Spro's our sister company, and that's a whole new hook needed for that, right? So stay tuned.
Yeah, don't want to give away any secrets there too, but that antenna hook, like I said, I've got a pack, and it's very situational. too. Which, how long does it take to like come to market with that? Like, as far as from like a concept, is it like over a year and a half or something like that from design to
once we have got all the design parameters done and we got drawings done and everybody's happy with the way that they fished, it typically does take, Matt, right at about a year for us to spin those hooks up and again have them come in, to inventory physically here on the shelves.
All right, we'll go with the third. That's kind of the most visually unique, and then we'll get into some meat and potato stuff that I know a lot of people are familiar with. But it's the 34R Hydro Roll.
Yeah, the Hydro.
And I've been calling it a Hydro Roll the whole time, and you're absolutely right. There is no O. It's the Hydro.
No, you get an extra O going there, Matt.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. It's still pretty cool. So this, to me, is a bait that had a need that Gamakatsu is able to say, hey, we can fix that. And this thing is one of those that you look at and you go, oh, that makes total sense right off the hopper.
Yeah, and I've got one here that hopefully everybody can see. Okay, I'll try to kind of hold it up here still. Yep. But basically what we did is we took and added a swivel to the front of the hook. And this was developed in Japan again, very specific technique used on biwa. They're using those turnstile baits, those types of baits where they were using this specifically for that. And the minute I saw it, I love to throw a fluke. That's one of my favorite ways to catch fish. And the minute I saw it, I'm like, okay, I'm all over this for a fluke. And as we've started talking about this, there's lots more of this type of technology where the swivel's built into the head. I can think of several, and we've already got a few things that are going to be coming for next year with this exact same concept, only on different styles of hooks. And again, this is one that's been a little slow to get going, but I think as people start using it and they get a season or two with them, it'll really start to take off.
And that just basically virtually completely eliminates line twist, whether you're throwing the turd style bait, like that heavy turd style bait, or a fluke or a mag fluke, anything that you could have line roll with, where you would, a lot of times you'd see guys that would put a swivel 18 inches above it that would then impact the action on that. This completely eliminates all that line twist, because that portion right there is complete 360 degrees around. You can't have any line twist, and it adds just a tad bit of weight up there, so the bait goes nose down too, I would imagine. That's great.
That's exactly it, Matt. That's you hit the nail on the head with that little bit of weight, just a touch of weight, and it's that swivel is extremely strong. We haven't had any failures or any reports of failures on it at all, so it's you can tie that on with confidence.
Talk about that 34R. So it's no secret there's more than one hook company out there on the market. I love Gamakatsu, always have, but if you go to a tackle store and look around, there has definitely been a trend, and for so long it was either a G-lock, an EWG, a straight shank, or just a straight round bend. But this kind of hybrid worm hook, which Gamakatsu kind of introduced with the Mike McClellan line like that, it seems to just keep getting refined and refined. Talk about that hook and the advantages to kind of this hybrid offset that has now kind of become the industry standard, and you're seeing it a lot more in Gamakatsu offerings as well.
So an EWG worm hook is our number one selling hook. I mean, I think it will always have a place in the market and in every angler's tackle box. But there's also, if truthfully, Matt, when you start asking some of the pros and the guys that are fishing for money, they really prefer the hybrid worm hook or some of the others because of the way that the eye of the hook is in relationship to the point. And it allows them, what they feel is to drive that. If you can bring one up, so you can see if you drew a straight line from the tip of that hook, or if the point of that hook to the eye, you can see where it's a lot more in line. So when they go to set that hook, they get the best of both worlds. They've got a wide gap for those larger, thicker baits.
Okay.
It also allows them to drive that hook with more strength into the fish. And so that's where a lot of this comes from, is that whole concept.
You're talking about this line that I'm making with my cursor right here.
You're exactly right.
So when you pull straight out, you're driving that hook. That hook has to catch something in order to exit the fish's mouth. There's no turning. It's a more efficient way. A higher hookup ratio is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. And then keeping the advantage of the EWG by the gap in the throat, right in this area of the hook.
Correct. So that's why like Mike's hook is a hybrid. So it's a little bit of a deeper bend in it than the Worm 34R. So if you look at Mike McClellan's hybrid worm hook, it was based loosely off of the Worm 34R. So we launched the hybrid worm hook several years ago, and it's been in the marketplace now and is a staple in a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a standard.
This one right here. So you can see how much of a deeper or wider bend that has than the 34R. And so the 34R is going to be more of your more stick style, little thinner profile, that type of thing.
Okay. I see. So it keeps it actually goes deeper in the throat in the hybrid worm hook, but it maintains that same angle of the line tie to the hook point.
That's correct.
Interesting. I'm curious here. Now I want to pull up just the standard EWG and just see what that looks like.
And there's a lot of the guys with the EWG that you talk to, and everybody's got a different way to do it. That they actually I've talked to several guys that take an EWG and actually bend their point or the tip up a little bit, and everybody's got a different way of doing it. But some folks will do that too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Okay, so if I'm pulling, I'm definitely the hook point definitely points more towards the bend right there than it does the eye.
Correct.
Interesting. Now, do you guys have how do you test this stuff? Is this all trial and error with Gamakatsu pros on the water? Or are there test tanks and things where you're actually pulling hooks online and things and seeing what hooks better, what doesn't? How does that process work?
So a lot of it's just trial and error. I mean, there's theory in mind of how we want to do it, because it's just difficult to repeat something like that in a lab kind of environment. We've tried to do different setups like you're referring to, the pull point of the hook and everything. But Matt, most of the time it's definitely trial and error and just testing in the field. So there's times it takes us a full 2 years to develop a hook, just because we get prototypes. And we wind up, going out and fishing those. We're like, okay, we need to make a few tweaks to this area, change the hook angle, change this. And once those things are all tested and everybody's signed off on it and happy with it, that's when we proceed to go ahead and start production with it.
All right, one more finesse product, and then we'll get into what I know. I've seen a lot of the people in the comments wanting to kind of dive into the Horizon heads, which we definitely will here. But I'm going to venture to say probably the most high quality nail weight in the history of bass fishing, Ted.
There's no doubt about that. Let me grab one here. I've got all kinds of stuff scattered around. So I'll hold up a pack here on the camera so everybody can see. So this is I'll hold it at an angle to where the light's not catching it too bad, but this is our tungsten nail weight.
Yeah.
And so everybody, you'll say, well, what makes this one special or what makes this one different? There's lots of tungsten nail weights out there. Well, the difference is that if anybody that's ever used these and inserted them into a soft plastic, you've also watched as several dollars as you're casting goes flying out of your bait as it works its way out of there. So this is an inherent problem with tungsten, is the fact that the weight only lasts so long and winds up coming or casting out, and it gets very expensive. This you might have to pull up on camera, because I don't know that you're going to be able to see it.
We'll try it here. No, you can kind of see it, but we'll go ahead and pull it up.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to pull it up. If you look closely at this one, the difference is it's got two little barbs that stick out of either side of it. There's the two little titanium barbs that stick out of it, and you can also see that the weight is stamped into the side of it, which makes it really easy to identify. And so by inserting it with these two little barbs on it, it now can't push back out. So once you've inserted it in there, it's not coming back out. You have to actually physically tear the plastic and or push it back out the way it came, the same way you went in, so you're not going against the barbs to get it back out of your plastic. And those little barbs right there, just keep that locked into that plastic. Just it works great. It works really, really well.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I mean, they're like $3 a piece, but I'm also looking at it as a lot of what we're seeing, like I said, with these
Koike.
Well, I'm trying to think of the style of baits though. But if you feel this plastic, this isn't an easy rippable plastic. It's a very durable plastic. So you're able to, I fished the 13 millimeter one up on leech and was able to catch, 6-7 fish. And I took it off and I've put it back on the little stick that it comes on. I'm not used to all this technical stuff here, all the little stick that it comes on, and it's good to go, but you're not losing them anymore. So instead of going through, a dozen worms a day, you might be able to fish this for a whole weekend, a whole tournament, and not lose one, especially with the different hooks and the rigging at it. So I think that there is a need for, I'm looking at like how precise that is. What you're seeing, we've seen Easton Fothergill do it. We've seen a bunch of guys do it where they're Nico rigging these wild dice creature style baits, and they need a very precise weight in it that stays in it. And this is something that I think a couple packs of these is going to save you a lot of time when you're trying to stuff dull lead into stuff that isn't going to stick, that isn't going to stay, and you're actually going to rip up more baits. So you're going to save more baits with this style of it's a high quality Nico weight.
Definitely is. And this is one that as soon as we started showing this one to the concept, to some of the pros and to some of our field test folks, immediately we're just super excited about this.
Yeah, like this is one where I'm gonna use my standard stuff maybe during practice and on the bite, and when I get dialed in and when it's tourney time, I'm putting one of these in, like for my tournament day. That's just me though.
I get it.
But maybe if I cash more checks, I'd be on those all the time. All right. It's been interesting in the industry. You've heard a lot of talk about tackle sales down, bait sales down, the minnow forward-facing sonar demolishing hard bait sales, which I don't think there's any argument that it is an evolving market right now, Ted. But one of the things that has kind of come to light over the last couple years is the minnow head. And I would venture to say that Gamakatsu has taken the market on that with the Horizon Head and the Horizon Head LG. Have you guys just seen astronomical growth in probably the boringest category up until 3 or 4 years ago, which would be a straight up lead head jig, and turning it into something that is now one of the most customizable and sought after categories in the tournament fishing world?
No, it definitely has done well for us, Matt. There's no doubt about it. And it's not, it's not really impacted the other hook sales, at least from what we can see, because, a lot of what we sell is still, worm hooks, because that's still a very obviously popular technique. But this particular series of products, that's why you see so many versions that we have now. We've got all different kinds of versions. So we've really took the initiative to be very creative and try to address all kinds of needs, whether it be light, small, finesse type stuff, or big Sakamata shad style applications. So, and everything in between. I think I'm not sure, because we even have the weedless version. We have 2 different weedless versions, for those applications, because that's another area that I don't think we've seen really take off quite yet. And I think that's going to even continue to be more and more popular.
How difficult is it? So, right now, obviously, the Horizon Head over the last 3 years has been incredibly effective with the minnow, but you offer it from, like, just in the standard, in the LG, a 1/8 ounce in a 1/0 all the way up to a 3/0 in a 5/32 ounce. How difficult is it just to say, oh, let's do a 3/8 ounce, let's do a 1/2 ounce, let's throw a 5/0, let's throw a 6/0 in there, let's just change up all the hook sizes? Because I that's the other question. I saw 3 people on here that go, oh, you need heavier ones or you need bigger ones. Is that a thing where it's not just as simple as just saying do the same thing except bigger? Do you have to like change all sorts of stuff with a hook when you're scaling it?
Not typically. I think really what it boils down to more than anything, Matt, is kind of like I alluded to earlier, is the amount of volume we can do. When we have to turn a machine on, we've got to turn it on for, a lot. And that's what really dictates that more than anything. So typically what we try to do is we launch hooks that fit that 80-20 rule. So we're trying to fit that 80% of the market initially. And then as we see demand in other markets or other sizes, that feedback, we start to expand the line or add sizes, that type of thing.
Okay. So on the other end of it, when I went over to Japan this past October, the terminal tackle aisles are insane. Like I want to go over to Japan and avoid all the baits and just you've been over there, right?
Yeah,
and you've seen the terminal tackle aisle. Like you go into the jig head aisle, and I'm used to a North American jig head aisle where you have 5 or 6 different options, 5 or 6 different. If you want a half ounce, you can have it. Like you go into some of these terminal tackle aisles, and they will have, it's as long as the biggest aisle in any major retailer, and it's all 1/128th to 1/16th ounce jig heads in every single shape and size from the tiniest all the way up. But the one thing that is in common is we're Bubba fishermen over here. Like when it comes to the minnow stuff, like you can't get like a 1/4 ounce or a 3/8 ounce, or it's all like minute, micro, smaller stuff. And one of the things that are you talking about the kind of newer, smaller stuff that you're coming over? Is that on? Can we talk about that too?
Sure.
Okay.
Definitely.
Because you gave me that pack of what was it called? The LG, the little bitty horizon heads that were.
Was it the LG Light? The
LG lights.
Yeah, so that's the new one. So the LG Light. I've got these up here with the wire guard on it.
Yeah.
And then there's also the Horizon Head SN, which is also teeny tiny guy. It's only a 96th of an ounce.
That's what I'm saying. Is that the next thing that's coming, Ted? Is that what you guys are kind of seeing trending wise? As you're going to see much bigger ones and then these tinier ones? Do you have any packs of those there? With?
Oh, 100%. I got them right here. So the LG Light. Here, let me get one open, Matt. Give me just a second. A little easier. I try to show it in the plastic. It'll be harder to see.
Yeah. But they're legit crappie. Like I will be using for crappie jigs too.
Yeah, I remember when you and I got together, I showed those to you. That was the first thing you said. You said this is ideal for that. So if you look at this one, sorry folks, give me just a second. All right.
I don't even see those on the website, Ted.
That's because we don't have them in stock yet.
Okay. That thing is badass. Sorry. That's the only way to describe that. It's like a shrunken Honey, I Shrunk the Kids horizon head.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
that's going to be lethal for crappie. That's lethal for spotted bass. That is lethal for all of your 2 to 3 inch minnows. Any of that stuff like that fall the shad, the little bitty stuff. It is so hard to find the high quality stuff that is. It's like getting a pack of 3/0 EWGs over in Japan. Like that's what everyone's using over there.
100%. And so this one, we've got it down to it's a size 2 hook and a size 1 and 1/0. So that's the size range of the hooks on the LG weedless light. So we go from a 2 to a 1/0, and then we're all the way down to a 32nd, all the way up to 3/32, some of those bigger ones. But like you said, just real finessey, real light. And that does feature our nano alpha coating in TGW wires. So that's our really good wires, that nice, thin, strong wire. But it's the thing I like about this one is it's still got enough of a gap on it, even for some of those little thicker baits you might be using for smaller fish.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of that light hook. Are you still seeing? It seemed like a couple years ago, like the Jika rig, the power shot, the down thing where you had the wire that was coming down from the hook. Like that seemed to be like kind of the next hottest trend. I know Gamakatsu has a lot of offerings on that. Is that still kind of selling, or has that kind of leveled off?
No, it's definitely leveled off. This is where you're starting to see things trend, and there's some things that continue to sell well and do well year in and year out, but then there's some things that you kind of see, like you said, the Jika rig was the big deal, and I would say that you're starting to see that really, you just don't see it as much anymore, and that's what's the challenge always is developing new things, and then I guess if some of that stuff goes away, that the minute you obsolete something, you'll get a flood of calls and say, "Oh, that's my favorite one. That's my favorite one." We fight that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of something like that. I feel like that was like I thought too. I was like, okay, I've got to really learn how to do this, and I think there's a time and a place for it. But it was interesting how that to me kind of got overlapped. That technique kind of got overlapped with the forward-facing sonar explosion, and then the dice baits and the minnows. Like, I still think it's very effective. I just think that trend kind of got killed by a new trend that came in on top of it.
No doubt about it. And One of the things that I wanted to show too, that's not on the website either, was I do have the other hook I want to show, Matt, which is that the Super Tune drop shot. I think this is kind of a tribute. This is the last hook we had in development that Aaron Martins helped us develop, and this was his concept and his idea. It's funny, you mentioned earlier the G-lock worm hook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Aaron always felt that would make a heck of a drop shot hook, and if you look at this hook,
put your other hand behind it.
Sorry.
Perfect.
If you look at this hook, it's got, and I'll try to just get it as close as I can for everybody.
Yeah, it's got a little. Oh yeah, it looks just like the G-lock.
It's got that upturned point, and if you look at the shank, it's a straight shank on it, right? And the idea behind this with that little upturned point, and I'll try to hold it right steady so everybody can kind of see that.
Yeah, that's perfect, Ted.
Is that Aaron's felt that point right there was going to help drive that hook into the fish much better than just a traditional style. So not only, if you've used Aaron Martin's the G Finesse drop shot hook, that was one of his designs too, but he felt this was even superior to that. So these Super Tune drop shots, they just got in inventory. I was up in Canada traveling last week, so this week we're going to get them up on the website. So everybody's kind of keep an eye out for those, because these are going to be available. I'm going to get them put up this week, and so we do have these inventory, and we've got dealers that have already ordered them, and so these are going to be shipping out here very soon.
Very cool. I assume in just the regular packs and then the 25 packs as well.
Yeah, just the regular packs in this one, because this is going to feature it's got the nano alpha coating and the TGW wire on it. So typically on those, we don't offer those in bigger bulk packs initially once we launch them.
Okay, awesome. I did get my hands on also some of the big round bend stuff too. Are there enough guys throwing the big glide baits and the big baits for these big round bend big bait special hooks? I mean, because they are wildly sharp.
Oh, they're incredible, and this is a variety of fisheries for this one. Not only is this going to be a good, glide bait, that type of thing application, Matt, but we also have a lot of guys in the muskie world and in the salmon world on the Great Lakes that'll use this hook. So there's always, what we're trying to do is appeal to a wide range of markets with a single hook and have it carry over into multiple markets.
You're not just a bass guy. I think that's important too. Like, you're dealing with a bunch of salmon markets, walleye, predator fish, all sorts of different things. How much of a percentage would you say North America is Gamakatsu of hardcore bass guys as opposed to other species? Like, are we in a little bubble here where there's a whole nother world of hooks that people like me included, and you're like, yeah, I'm not even going to mention all this other stuff because it's just not bass and it's just a small section? Or are there a lot of bass anglers that make up a large percentage of Gamakatsu USA?
No, it is. That's where there's more participation. Let's face it. There's a lot more people bass fishing than, let's say, salmon fishing, but up here in the Northwest, salmon fishing is king. This is what kind of, the retailers are all geared up for. This has been a great year. We had what's called a humpy year, which is a pink salmon, and they come every 4 years. And so or every 2 years. So that's one of those things that people get really excited about, and those local fisheries benefit from that. But I've got a whole different style of hook called the Big River hooks, designed specifically for salmon fishing. And so that's not something that a bass angler is going to probably ever even want to use or look at. But again, there's all kinds of applications like that, man. We touch every fishery, because let's face it, you can't catch a fish without a hook, is what I always say. And it's your connection to the fish. So it's the most important thing. And one of the things I always like to stress to people when we start talking about hooks is, yes, they're a premium price. Gamakatsu is a premium price. But to me, the amount of time and energy and money that you spend to go angling, so you're going to spend $1 more for a pack of hooks to make sure that you've got a good one. I mean, come on. We're not, it's by the time you put fuel in your boat and fuel in your truck and lunch and everything else that goes into a fishing experience, and we don't get a chance to fish as much as we'd all like to. But for me personally, when you get out there, I'm going to use something that I can, your hook and your line are probably your two most important things, in my opinion.
Are you a keep your hooks in the pack until it's time to use one type of guy, or are you take your hooks out and line them up in a Gamakatsu tackle box kind of guy? Or, if just your personal stash, Ted, not the company line as far as it, but like, if your goal is to keep your hooks, you're like, hey, I've got hooks that I'm going to use for the next 2, 3, 4 years here. How are you keeping them the sharpest, rust-free, best, ready to go. So it's like it's straight off the line when you tie it on.
Always keep them in the pack. I mean, for me, it's just a much easier way to store the hooks, to identify the hooks. They're nice and safe that way. To me, I don't think that there's much. I don't know. There's some people that like to do that, and there's no, more power to you if you like to do that. Even with as many hooks as I get to see, you can't always tell, especially as I get older, how you start looking at things. It doesn't come into focus as good as it used to. But just the sizing on it, especially with some of like this, use the Horizon heads as an example, Matt. There's such subtle differences between those that it's challenging to be able to tell the difference. So I personally like to keep them in the pack. That's always been the way that I've always enjoyed. I like doing it.
So I've changed recently over the last couple years. I was big on the double sided slit foam cases, and I still am, but I use them in reverse now, to where I keep all my Horizon heads in the pack, and then you're going to change, you're going to cut off, you're going to try the new ones and stuff. But what I do then is, once I've used them, then I dry them off, I put them in the utility box, and then I can use them out of the utility box, which still keeps them fresh, I just keep it super dry in there, the slits, and it keeps them dry. But instead of going from pack to box, I now go pack to fishing to box. And now I have the stuff that's never been used, the stuff I'm using, and then the stuff that I've already used, but still has the integrity of the point that I can tie back on and still feel confident in. So that's how I do it now.
So here's an example of exactly what you're talking about, Matt. So I've got some Horizon heads in here and some trebles.
Yep.
And this is a new box that we just developed. It's our double-sided slit foam. There's a 3200 and a 3600, and these are both available on the website. But these are awesome for holding, even trebles and or the Horizon heads. Is really, to your point, this works out really well for that. It gives you just all kinds of storage, because you can put some in the lid and some down below, and it just closes down. Has one hand snap latch on it and stores it really nicely that way.
Very cool. I will show what I think is one of the most underrated jig hook offerings for small, like very small baits in the fall of the year, and it is this little number right here. And I love throwing that little 1/8 ounce size of it, and it is a tiny hook. It looks weird on it, but on like a 1.8 to 2 inch, like that little itty bitty 2-inch Kitech that swims amazing, that you can't put on any jig head, it fits that jig head absolutely perfectly. The round 211 is what that's called.
That's been in our product lineup for a long time. That's been a long time staple in the product line.
I'm not exactly sure like what it's designed for, but it works perfect for that.
Like I said earlier in the conversation, Matt, there's a lot of those things that we design it for a certain technique, and then somebody winds up figuring out something else.
What was that designed for?
That's before my time, Matt. I couldn't honestly tell you.
Okay. One of the cool things that I would do if I were you is go through. So like that Ailer hook is a saltwater, or is a fly hook, right?
Yes, it was.
That was totally turned to where everyone's like, hey, this is perfect. And he kind of found it. I picked it out of that lineup, and then you turned it into a bass hook. But there are all sorts of, at Gamakatsu.com, all sorts of cool hooks for saltwater, for fly fishing, all sorts of different treble hooks, all sorts of different keepers. But definitely if you're looking to mess around, I think, is that it right there? That B10S?
Correct.
Yeah, that's it right there. It's actually under the fly fishing.
So I'll use another example if I can, Matt. So
absolutely.
If you pull up the weedless wacky hook that Shin designed.
Yep.
So that's a great hook. Obviously, that's one that most places I go, that's a hook people point to quite often. Is that hook as to how much they like that for that style of technique. So if you look at this, if you bring that hook up, that G-Finesse weedless wacky, and look at the design of it. It's got the titanium wire guard on it. It's got the big wide gap on it. It's a shorter shanked hook, but it was designed specifically for that weedless wacky type rigging. And that specific hook, this was a conversation, and we were talking about different fisheries before. This particular hook in our office, our warehouse manager is an avid steelhead fisherman, and they use what's called a bead. It's bead fishing on the rivers. It's a very popular technique for catching steelhead.
Freaking awesome too. I love it. Yeah, you're drifting it down the river with your 6 mil peachy pearl. It's pegged an inch above your bead, and then all of a sudden, zzz, you got a friggin' angry steelhead or rainbow on the end.
So this is our TGW and Nano Smooth Coat hook, and so there was an ongoing debate in the office as to how effective bead hook fishing is in catching a fish, but your landing ratio isn't very good.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jeff Roberts, who in our office, he's kind of our local bass guy, our internal bass guy. He says, "Why don't you use this hook and just cut the wire guard off and put the bead on there?" And Dustin says, "There's no way this hook will hold up to a steelhead. There's no way." So if you'll pull up, Matt, and do me a favor and pull up what's called the bead hook on the website so you can show everybody on camera. It'll make it a lot easier than me trying to show it here. So that's exactly what they did. Is we cut the wire guard off of that, and he started fishing this thing on a regular basis, just internally, and the hookup ratio went up phenomenally. So exactly. So see, that's that exact same hook. So see, it's like the B10S Stinger. We designed it for one thing, but then it winds up being something else. So this has become one of the most popular hooks in the Northwest for steelhead fishing, and it's literally a bass hook that we just took the wire guard off of it and called it a bead hook.
Let me ask you something that I don't know if you have a good answer to or not. Barbs.
Mm-hmm.
So there are all sorts of different sizes of barbs out there. It seems like on some of the G Finesse stuff, the barbs are a little bit smaller. You have some barbs that are bigger. You have different diameters, angles, circumferences of it. How do you guys go about figuring out which barb goes on which hook?
A lot of times it has to do with, actually most of the time it's the type of steel that we're using. So the TGW steel that we use, that is by design has to be a small barb because that's the way we slice that barb into the metal is done in such a manner, and just due to the properties of the metal itself, that's what dictates the size of the barb on that one. So you'll notice all the G Finesse products that use anything that uses TGW wire will naturally always have a smaller barb on it.
There you go. So that's just the way it has to be and by design on it. That's
correct.
Okay. How many more materials are out there to mess around with hooks, Ted? Are there like is there proprietary stuff right now where are we 5 years from now going to be having, stuff that we're now saying is fine wire that you can take and bend out that's going to have the bending power of, say, a flipping hook in the future? Like, is that potential to have insane strength with are there other materials out there that you could make hooks out of?
We've experimented with different things, but I think at the end of the day, in order to find a hook that has just the right amount of flex without breaking, to manage this material, to get it to hold a point like it does, that's quite a process. It really is. I don't think you're going to see as much as far as in the material, because the TGW wire is the best of the best. That is hands down our best wire. It took a long time to develop that technology to be able to, again, forge that, to be able to put a point on it, and to have just all the right properties that everybody looks for in a hook. So I think what you're seeing more of now, Matt, is the coatings. That's where the nano alpha coating's coming from, and I think that's where you're going to see some of the enhancement is the nano alpha coating, making it smoother, slicker, better penetration, more corrosion resistant. So going back to how you store hooks, the nano alpha is 4 times more corrosion resistant. So you're going to start seeing us expand more and more hook styles with that nano alpha coating, because when you go to Japan, if you look at the hook wall for Gamakatsu, most of those hooks all have the nano alpha coating on them.
Yep.
And so we understand that fishermen and the people that tune into the show kind of like what they like. And so we were very concerned about bringing in something that changed the look, because when you use that nano alpha coating, it gives the hook a more of a gunmetal gray look than a traditional nickel silver black. And in our experience, anglers again like what they like, and they don't like to change too much if for something that's proven. So that's why we've been very slow to launch nano alpha. We only launched it at a handful of hooks, but you're going to continue to see us expand as the market accepts that more and more.
Is the color hooks in bass fishing kind of over with? There are still some guys that stick to the red, but I mean, you get in the walleye world and you see orange and blue and chartreuse and red and all sorts of different hook colors. Is that a thing where like the red had its run, still offered in a trailer hooks and some treble hooks and some EWGs, but we're not going to see chartreuse hooks in tournament grade wired nano? Like, is that
no, because in honesty, we can't with that type of, when we put a nano alpha coating on the hook, it's colored or it's nano alpha. It's not both.
Okay, I got you. So you can't combine.
Can't interchange. So like, again, when you talk about red octopus hooks, that's still one of our number one selling hooks for the walleye world, for the salmon world, that type of thing. So it's still very much a thing.
Very cool. All right. Well, anything else that and I've kept you for an hour. Didn't even take a break in this. I just been hitting you with questions and showing stuff. Anything else that you wanted to make sure you wanted to show before? I've got
one other product that you've got to check these out. These I can't, every time I show them. So I had the opportunity to sell braided fishing line for a previous career, and I've tried every kind of braid scissors known to man. And these ceramic braid scissors you see here, I've
got 3 of those in my boat from
Gamakatsu. I got to tell you, these things are like, when I first saw them, I just wasn't sure and I couldn't believe it. So I've got, when you think about every boat I've ever jumped in to go fishing in has a rusty old pair of pliers and rusty old scissors to use. And, I've got some 30-pound braid here, and these things just cut effortlessly. I mean, it's just amazing how well they cut, and they're nice and compact. They fit the hand really nice. These little ceramic braid scissors, I tell you, it's one of those things that until you try them, you're just going, man, these are just amazing.
No, it looks like something that the ShamWow guy would sell.
Exactly.
And you're like, that has to cost 30 sets for them to make, and they're $20. They legitimately, I don't think that ceramic can rust, can it?
No, it doesn't rust.
And as long as you don't try to like cut metal with them.
Exactly.
Which I ruined a pair doing that. So don't try to cut metal with them. But I've got 3 pairs of these things. Not kidding. These, especially if you're doing braid to fluoro leaders, if you're cutting any sort of braid connection knots or anything, get a pair of these. Get a pair of these.
Yeah, they're just, that's all I can say to folks is just until you try them, you're just like, I can't believe these things work as well as they do.
And it feels like a 50-cent pair of scissors, but those are that's ceramic. It's not.
Yes. Uh-huh.
That's why it's got that weird sound when you.
Yep, and they're serrated, so that's why it grabs the braid so good. That's why you can kind of hear that little sound if you can hear it on the speaker.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Definitely worth it. I might hit you up for some of those, and then we could do maybe some BTL giveaways towards the end of the year.
Be happy to. Would love to.
I think that'd be a fantastic. Giveaway product. And I'm getting married in less than a month now, so my lovely fiance is very good at mailing things out, Ted. So if you win a BTL prize pack now, there's a good chance you'll get it within a week. I mean, the standard time is 6 months to a year right now. So
I understand.
Anything else, Ted? I know you've got a really busy project, busy timeline. We've had this scheduled for a long time. Like, you've been all over the country and other countries, and will continue to do that. But thank you for taking time on BTL. And if you want to check out any of this stuff, Gamakatsu has an active Facebook page. Like I said, if you want to check out some of those one-touch blades and all that, there's McClellan's on there. There's guys talking about it. You can also just go to gamakatsu.com. It's got all the new products on there. You can order straight off of the website there. So.
Well, great. Well, thanks for having me on, Matt. Appreciate it as always, and great questions. And thanks for everybody tuning in. Appreciate it, Ted. See ya. And I've always been able to say your last name, Thibault, because there was an NHL goalie back in the day named Jocelyn Thibault. Yes. You don't happen to be related to Jocelyn Thibault, do you? No.
I think he was a Penguin for a while, maybe Avalanche for a little bit.
No, I get the Tim Tebow thing all the time too. Just even though it's spelled differently.
Tbow, but
yeah, exactly.
Pronounced the same, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is. But when I go to Canada, especially in Quebec, Thibault's a very common name up there, so everybody knows how to say it. That's like there was an Elite Series angler back in the first couple years of the Elite Series. His name was Ken Broder, but it was spelled the exact same as Martin Brodeur, who was French, a French goalie, legendary. So I always called him Ken Brodeur, but everyone else called him Broder because it was just spelled B-R-O-D-U-R. Anyway. Well, thanks for pronouncing my name correctly, Matt. You did.
Yeah.
You did good. You passed that test.
Yeah, you hang out with Cliff Crochet enough, you learn those type of names.
That's true. That's true.
All right, see you, Ted.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Just a cool refresher on hooks and things. I think it's easy to get your favorites, to find your favorite hooks and stick with it. I know I'm guilty of that. But when it comes to baits, we all try new baits. We all try new plastics and things. And Gamakatsu has a lot of cool hook offerings on the market. And it's hard to get confidence in something that looks weird or that you're not used to. But I would just say, think of all the other baits. Like a chatterbait was weird at first. A sluggo was really weird at first. An umbrella rig was around forever. A whopper plopper around forever. There's all these baits that seem odd, and then you start catching fish on it. You gain confidence in it, and it seems something that you can't believe it wasn't a part of your arsenal. Some of the hooks we covered today, I think, have some of the potential for that. And it's also cool because hooks can change, just a hook can change a bait from a topwater bait to a bottom bait to the action in it to the effectiveness in it. If you're missing fish on it, a hook change can change it from a 50% hook to land ratio to an 80% hook to land ratio. I know when I get in the boat with these guys who are at the top of their games, who are the top guys in the industry, they have an overkill of hooks, and they have a lot of hooks that they don't use, and they have a lot of hooks that they're working on, and a lot of hooks. But when they're fun fishing, when I'm on the water with them, they're always trying new hooks, which I think is something that isn't talked enough about. I think we're just going to go commercial free for the show today. Big announcement. I am headed on Thursday to Wisconsin, and my buddy Adam Bartuzik's getting married. And then I am headed to Matt Steffen's house for the second annual In Fisherman Master Angler series, where we will be doing nightly shows. We are spending 4 days chasing in fisherman Master Angler species and recording it. I think we're doing smallmouth, maybe some muskie, walleye, perch, and maybe some salmonoids. It'd be interesting to see how we get, but you guys are going to be able to follow all that along. We're either going to do a Thursday evening or a Wednesday evening or a Thursday morning show on that following day 4. So this has been another edition of Bass Talk Live. Same time, same place tomorrow. Big shout out to Ted Thibault for getting up super early and jumping on and talking about hooks for an hour. We'll talk to everyone tomorrow. See ya.